AJ and Tyson Fury seem to be whipping themselves into the best condition they can for July. Now, we can see during some of their training footage that they are of course on weight, they are of course at the weight they want to be for their fight, which is extremely important going into a training camp, because the training camp needs to be so that they can get ready for their opponent, and that requires certain game plans to be put into place for either fighter. Now, the last thing they want to do is to be losing weight during that journey. The training camp is specifically for their opponent. Obviously, it doesn't matter if they are 1 or 2 pounds over or 1 or 2 pounds under, but the main thing is they are on weight going into their training camp, especially for a fight of this magnitude. That is very important. And they will have a specific game plan for their opponent. The interesting thing for, say, Anthony Joshua is he will have to fight differently from the way he fought Ruiz in the second fight, from the way he fought Pulev, and he will have a different game plan for Tyson Fury. So everyone says that Anthony Joshua has changed, he's more safety first, and he is different from the fighter we saw around his 16th, 17th, maybe 18th fight in his career. And I wouldn't say he's that different, I would say that he's well improved and far more mature. So we've seen Anthony Joshua go down, but he's never been knocked down by an opponent he hasn't knocked down first, which does kind of tell you there is an element of inexperience there. So he will tighten up his game and he will be different from his last two performances when he gets in with Tyson Fury. He's going to want to get up close and make it rough. Tyson Fury cannot face Anthony Joshua the same way he fought Deontay Wilder, despite what he believes. I mean, I don't actually believe he thinks he's going to be able to face AJ in the same manner, because AJ has way more things he can do than just land a big right hand. Because with Deontay Wilder, what Tyson Fury needed to do was take away that right hand and not allow him to set his feet. It might look simple, it might look like Tyson Fury just put a front foot fighter on the back foot, and in some ways, yes, it is that simple. In other ways, Tyson Fury was never allowing Deontay Wilder to set his feet. He was never allowing him a chance to get that right hand away. He was positioned to the side of Deontay Wilder, so if Wilder wanted to land that right hand, he would have to reach across his own body when he threw the shot, because his feet weren't set in that position to be able to land the punch, so therefore all the power was taken away. Tyson Fury never really got caught clean and bore the full brunt of that right hand in that second fight because of the way he was positioned and the way he set out his game plan. So it was far more intricate than just putting a front foot fighter on the back foot, but you can see it as being that simple. Other fighters will go in there with Deontay Wilder now and try and do the same thing. The thing is though, they do not have the attributes of Tyson Fury, so therefore some of them will get knocked out. Not all of them. Maybe Andy Ruiz could have a good chance of doing it, but he needs faster feet. That is the thing. Tyson Fury has good footwork, and he's not just fast with his hands, he's fast with his feet as well, which is surprising for someone who's 6'9" and was weighing 270 pounds when he got in the ring with Deontay Wilder. Ruiz would need a lot faster feet than he had, say, in the second Anthony Joshua fight, because he just couldn't close that distance. His feet were not fast enough. AJ was able to use his footwork, his positioning as well, to outbox and beat Andy Ruiz Jr. So if Ruiz was able to do the same thing as Tyson Fury did to Deontay Wilder, his feet would need to be faster. Tyson Fury had that, and he used that to his advantage in the Wilder fight. If he had allowed Wilder to come forwards, then it would have been a lot more difficult for Tyson Fury. We saw that in the first fight. He gave Deontay Wilder too much room and to be able to control the pace. The second time around, Tyson Fury was not allowing him to do that. And there is talk about Tyson Fury not having a big punch, but he didn't need it in the Deontay Wilder fight. He just wore him down. And eventually Deontay Wilder was in no position to be able to land his punches because he was just so fatigued. So those punches were never going to land. And if they did, there was little in them. You could see it in that 7th round. There was little on his punches because he was so tired. And that wasn't down to Deontay Wilder's training, overtraining, undertraining. I mean, he was a little bit heavier and a lot of that weight was on his upper body. So maybe that did factor in somewhat, but mostly it was because Tyson Fury was constantly getting in his head, walking him down. Anything that Wilder threw and landed, Tyson Fury just walked through. And that has got to be disheartening for the biggest puncher on the planet. Or so he believes himself to be. So Tyson Fury was also getting in his head by doing that, taking his power and dishing out his own. Deontay Wilder got to a point where he was fatigued, he was tired mentally and physically, and ultimately, Tyson Fury was able to get the victory, and it was in stunning fashion. Having said that, as impressive as that performance against Deontay Wilder was, he cannot do the same thing against Anthony Joshua. He will require a different game plan and different attributes to his game, because if he does that to AJ, AJ will have some of that. AJ will trade up on the inside. He won't worry too much about what is coming back. There is this air of vulnerability about Anthony Joshua, but there is with Tyson Fury as well. I mean, he was dropped by Steve Cunningham, a cruiserweight coming up to heavyweight, and that was down to inexperience as much as being so-called chinny. Tyson Fury is not chinny. He has a very good chin. He's shown that in the Wilder fight, but also he's shown his ability to position himself, to take punches, to ride shots as well. AJ is starting to bring that into his game a lot more, and not just standing there and trading with his opponent, throwing caution to the wind when he believes that they are hurt. I mean, he did kind of do that in the third round with Kubrat Pulev, but it was educated. He wasn't taking too many risks. He knew that if Kubrat Pulev was not ready to go, then he could outbox him. He was beating him. He had a better jab, his movement was better. He was throwing and landing much better punches than Kubrat Pulev. So AJ was comfortable in there. But still, when he got his man hurt, he wanted to go after him. He wanted to close the show. And that could be very important in the Tyson Fury fight. That instinct to go after his opponent when they are hurt. That could be very important, but also that could be detrimental. It is a fine line, because he doesn't want to go too early, but he doesn't want to go too late either when, say, his opponent is building back into the fight. I think that with Ruiz, he rushed in too quickly. I think that with Vladimir Klitschko, he rushed in too quickly in that 5th round. Eventually, AJ got back behind his boxing, took a round or two off, and built back into the fight and managed to get the victory. That was a very important lesson for him to learn, to not go straight after his opponent, but when he gets them hurt, to break them down. But also sometimes, it does require a fighter to go after their opponent and not allow them to recover. But it's just recognizing the difference. AJ shown that he had learned those lessons in the Pulev fight, because he did drop him in the 3rd round, had him in trouble, went after him but didn't get the stoppage, so got back behind his boxing, settled back into the fight, knew all of the fundamentals were in his control, the pacing, the distance, the positioning as well, and was able to get the stoppage victory in the 9th round, proving that he had learned the lessons he needed to learn. Tyson Fury much the same with regards to his performance against Klitschko, and then Deontay Wilder the first one, Deontay Wilder the second one. He learned his lessons in the first Deontay Wilder fight, and look what he was able to do in the second one. That is the mark of an elite level heavyweight. Someone who's able to have that kind of performance in the first fight, but then the second time around, look what AJ done to Ruiz, then look what Tyson Fury done to Deontay Wilder. AJ conclusively outboxed Ruiz, and Tyson Fury conclusively knocked out Deontay Wilder. So that proves they are able to have one fight and take all of the lessons they have learned, put them into the second one, and get a conclusive victory. Those lessons will serve them well going into an undisputed fight with one another. Anyway guys, what are your thoughts on this? Make sure you leave your thoughts in the comments below, also leave a like and grab that subscribe button. Thanks guys.